Well, good Monday morning to you. Welcome to our Monday morning live edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. I'm your host, Jim Tabor, along with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctor's Nutrition, located on Cal-Lorraine Road in Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. We do this every Monday morning, and it is a live call-in show, and we usually let you know a topic ahead of time, or if it's the first time you're tuning in, we will have something we'll be talking about today. And you are welcome to call in and ask questions regarding the topic or anything regarding your health, because that's what this show is all about, trying to help you live a healthier lifestyle. Our phone lines are 896-0713 or 800-349-0713. You can call your question in and pass it along to our producer, and they will pass it along to us. So we're talking about something this morning that has been around for actually thousands of years, and that is medicinal mushrooms.
Right. And like I say, it goes back to Hippocrates and way beyond.
Yes.
I mean, you know, the Chinese, gosh, they were probably pioneers.
I was going to say,
all the Asian countries, China, Japan, Korea, they typically were the ones that seem to be pioneers in that area because they have the longest history of use of virtually any of them. Probably because they had an atmosphere that would grow them better, you know, in a lot of those areas. So, but it's really kind of amazing that they would find something that has a medicinal purpose or can make something, you know, happen medically, health-wise, something that's edible. And most of them, well, there's a few that are not necessarily edible in the raw form.
Well, we were right before we came on the air, we were talking about how did they find out which ones were good and which ones were bad.
Well, you had to have some,
they have some
volunteers. Okay, you eat this one, you know, and if they eat that one and pass out, oh, we don't want that one. It had to be a trial and elimination. I mean, yeah, obviously.
They start hallucinating, chasing butterflies that aren't there.
Okay, yes, something like that.
We're not talking about hallucinogenic.
No, we're not talking.
We're not saying to go do that.
No. I'm just saying that it was their trial by error.
Yes.
Right, it had to be trial by error.
That.
Yeah, but and they may have watched an animal or something eat one and say, oh, they didn't die. Well, maybe I can do it. You know, and but it's amazing. Over the years, they've tried these mushrooms on all kinds of maladies, if you will, medical maladies and problems and conditions and so on, and found that they worked. And now modern research has kind of gone into it, and they're putting out some really interesting, shall we say interesting, research where they're seeing, you know, things like anti-cancer, you know, all sorts of really neat stuff.
And I was looking ahead before we came on this morning. I was looking online at some of the different things, and it was just, I agree, it's amazing to me all the different things that you know that they're good for.
Yeah.
Anti-cancer, you know, high blood pressure, cholesterol, just the list goes on and on and on.
It's good for anxiety and depression.
Yes.
Right.
Different ones are better for different things, but blood sugar, there's a lot of research on blood sugar on some of the mushrooms.
Brain activity.
It really, and even the beta-glucans have definitely been shown to help with deterioration of the brain and some of the dementias. And almost all your mushrooms have some sort of beta-glucan, some more than others. So there's actually, depending on which mushroom it is. But there is, if you go to, we always talk about, you know, the research, and if you go to PubMed, which is, you know, where you go to get peer-reviewed research that's truly been published in medical journals, there is tons.
We're talking about thousands.
I mean, thousands that's been done on medicinal mushrooms.
Yeah.
So people always want to say, oh, it's not FDA approved, so that means you don't have any research. That is not true. It just means that everything is FDA regulated. It's more about, it doesn't have to go through approval process per se because people haven't died from it.
Right.
And it hasn't killed people. And so the medicinal mushrooms have so much research.
Right.
And so that's one thing I wanted to put out there.
So many medical journals, well-known medical journals, when I was reading.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's all done.
It's all on there.
Yeah, it's not published in Mad Magazine.
No.
This is good stuff, okay?
And not even in just the nutrition journals. We're talking about mainstream medicine journals.
Medical journals.
Is
right.
where, and that's who's doing a lot of the research. There's one recent, it's actually ongoing clinical trials actually right now on a mushroom called AHCC, active hexose correlated compound. That one is, when you start looking at some of the stuff they're doing with it, the research right now is being MD Anderson, which is the cancer center. And the reason why they're researching it so closely is because of HPV. And HPV is one of the known causes for cervical cancer and mouth cancer. So it's actually definitely linked to cancers. And so they're looking at what can help with this virus. And in their clinical trials so far, it's looking like when they do, and they've gotten they've changed the dosage over the different stages. So we now know that it's like they used to do it per weight, now they're not. They're saying it's just a set amount for everybody. And they're saying that after doing it for 6 months, the AHCC, 60% of the people have cleared the HPV virus, so no longer show positive for it.
And it was once thought that you could not clear the HPV virus because it is one of the herpes viruses. We can typically suppress them, but we can't clear them, which means they no longer exist. And they've actually cleared it in like 64%, I believe it was.
Yeah, and we've actually seen it because we've actually had quite a few people that's done it that actually have tested positive for HPV, and they're worried about the cervical cancer and stuff like that. And so it definitely is something. And I've even seen articles about AHCC say, it's helped almost every virus that it's been ever checked against, it helps. So, even viruses that doesn't have tons of research, they think it can even help it because it helps most viruses. And the mushrooms in general, the immune system and the immune boosting properties of mushrooms are huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
I mean, and you mentioned how so much of this kind of originated over in Asia. I mean, look at the lifespan of those people over there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit better than us.
Yeah.
Something like
so. Yeah.
Yeah, we rank like number 30 in the world or something like that. Like you'd think we'd rank number 1, but no.
They're probably like in the top 5.
No, we're right. If they're in the top 5.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they're
in the top 5. But
now,
we're in the bottom.
Another very studied mushroom that one of the reasons it has so much research on it is because of, I think, the Japanese, or who's done a lot of it, but a lot of the Oriental countries over there.
Japanese.
It's one of the things, PSP and PSK, which is actually basically, it's from the turkey tail mushroom.
Yeah.
And that one, so much research for cancer.
I was reading some of that.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they even use it over there in addition to treatment. And they show that it accelerates and helps with chemo treatments to help with the cancers.
Wow.
So they're not doing it instead of, they're doing it with it. And at the same time, we've done that for years because I've read the research years ago. And so we always, if someone comes in and they are already, they're wanting some supportive care for their treatment, we use that. And there's no doubt it keeps the white count up. It keeps their immune system from tanking. It makes them able to keep going on with the treatment because so many people have to stop treatment because it lowers the immune system so much. So it really has some unbelievable research. And they say it is probably the most researched supplement at all for cancer just because of how much is done in the other countries.
896-0713, 800-349-0713. We have a caller with a question. We're going to get to your question right after we take this break, and we'll come back. It's 8 minutes after 9 o'clock. And welcome back. It's our Monday morning live edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show, and we have a question from a viewer. Can you talk about neuropathy of the brain?
Okay, now neuropathy, typically that means just some kind of pathology to the nerves. So that could take in anything, literally, okay?
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, when you look at that, there's so many things that are involved in brain health. We go back to our fish oil, the EPA, and even the DHA. Or 25% of your brain made up of DHA, so that's pretty important stuff. But then, you got other things that even one of the mushrooms we're going to talk about is lion's mane, which helps protect that brain.
And it is used for neuropathies.
It is.
So it is actually used for neuropathies, and it's really specific to brain health.
Right.
And there's so much on it. It even helps a lot with depression and anxiety and things like that. So the lion's mane is very, very good for that. And another thing for neuropathy of the brain you got to look at is your B12 and folate.
I was gonna say
because that causes neuropathies anywhere. And they know that if you're deficient in those nutrients, that long-term deficiency makes your brain shrink over time and definitely affects the brain as a whole. So it definitely does that.
All right. Another question from a viewer. Can you buy mushrooms for therapy in Socia?
Well, I don't know. We ship to Socia.
You can buy them in Gulfport.
It's a short drive. But I mean, we
do ship.
We have a lot of people from the Socia area that we ship things to. Sometimes they drive down if they just want a scenic drive or something. But needless to say, we ship things up there all the time. And one of the things about mushrooms, and I'm going to preface this by saying, you know, if you're looking for a specific issue that you may have and a mushroom to deal with that mushroom or deal with that problem, then you really want to be, you know, you want to dig into, it's not just every mushroom, so to speak. You look at specific ones for specific things. And that's where, you know, our knowledge base is going to come in to help you simply pick out the right thing for you.
And standardized extracts take out the active ingredient, so you know how much of the active ingredient is in the product. Because yes, you can eating mushrooms is beneficial, no doubt.
Actually, it is.
And your everyday mushrooms, your button mushrooms, your portobello mushrooms, are all in with the agaricus family. And the agaricus family has tons of research on being beneficial. So yes, you can eat those mushrooms, and definitely it helps the immune system. But if you're, like I said, if you're wanting it for a specific problem, going with the standardized extracts and knowing exactly what you're getting, how much you're getting, all that does make a difference. Because like I said, we've used them a lot through the years.
Well, and it's just like, you know, when you get into the specifics of the mushrooms, that AHCC that she mentioned earlier, a company in Japan actually pioneered that. You know, they took some extracts from certain mushrooms, and they actually pioneered that particular compound and the manufacturing process to get it. So it is a quote-unquote trademark, sort of like a patent, if you will, but it's trademarked. And if you can't use AHCC unless you take those steps to make that particular compound. And they've got the research to back it up. Yes, this compound does this. And it's really exciting.
AHCC is not an inexpensive mushroom.
No.
It's actually very expensive because of the process it takes to get it.
Right.
And so it has both the alpha and beta glucans guaranteed in the AHCC. Some mushrooms are not expensive. So we have some that are not, the lion's mane's not that expensive.
I was going to mention that. That's one of them that I saw during my look online this morning was the lion's mane.
He'll top your list for brain stuff.
Yeah,
okay, he really
lion's
will.
mane you do see a lot. And so lion's mane is not a real expensive, but the PSP is not as expensive as PSK, and they both have very similar properties, and we do keep both.
They use a different extraction process on the PSK versus PSP.
But the PSK is more expensive than the PSP. Not people say, well, is it better? Well, not always. I mean, it's just a different process of getting it, and it was the first one to come out.
Yeah.
It was the first to be discovered, and they found a less expensive way of extracting it. And that's your PSP.
And we've actually had patients that use both kinds.
Yep.
And the PSP, since it's a little bit more affordable, shall we say, they tend to gravitate to that one, and I don't blame them, you know, because it worked. Because they always ask, you know, because when you look at the research on it, well, yeah, the PSP and PSK, some of it was done just on PSK, but then there's other work that was done on the PSP. And if you have to read between the lines, well, gee, that's the same thing they came up with in this study. So yeah, they both work, very, very definitely work, and work very well.
And of course, some of your common ones, the maitake, the reishi, the shiitake, and those all have a lot of benefits also.
Yeah.
And even weight loss has been shown with some of the mushrooms. They say that,
Magic words, weight loss.
Believe it or not, it's not something that we use for weight loss. I mean, somebody don't come in wanting weight loss and we give them mushrooms. That's not what we do. But they say that it has been shown in studies to be beneficial for it. But it's definitely beneficial for sugar control. And most of them have been shown to actually help with sugar control.
Right.
There's one way that I enjoy mushrooms every couple of weeks, and that's, which I'm sure they're not really good for you, the button mushrooms that are fried in garlic, fried mushrooms.
Actually, the mushroom's good for
mushrooms
you.
are.
Just take the
method
breading off of it.
But the mushrooms
with the garlic, because I know garlic's good for you.
Yeah. Well, but actually, you know, that like she mentioned earlier, and you know, and just in passing, but that portobello, that big guy.
Oh yeah.
And then the little button mushrooms are in that family of agaricus blazei. And agaricus, and you start looking at that, I mean, the research on it starts talking about, you know, preventing leukemias and helping control some of those and some of the lymphomas and so on. So, I mean, it's got some pretty heavy research in the field of cancer. It really has. And you can eat those things. Probably have to eat them every day, you know, a bunch of them. But
and the good thing is they do show that, okay, we keep talking about there's so much research for cancer. You can do it with traditional therapy, I mean, with medical treatment.
Right.
So it's been good for side effects for both with the chemo and with radiation.
We've got one particular formula that we at MRS, which has got maitake, shiitake, and reishi all in one. And we use that one a lot. Somebody comes in and says they're on chemo and they're radiation and they're having side effects. that's one that we'll turn to because
Or we'll do the PSP and PSK.
Right.
Or you
Either
can do
one.
the Lion's Mane, or you can do the Shaga, or
Shaga.
there's so many of them that you can do, and they all have very beneficial results. We've
No doubt
used
about
one
it.
for years called Mycoimmune, but it's been on back order forever. And you know how that goes. We don't know when we're going to get it back in. But it's a liquid, and it's really nasty, but it does work.
not taste good.
But it does work.
She says, oh, it's not so bad. The first time I tried it, I was like, oh my,
We try everything ourselves, so.
It's 17 minutes after 9 o'clock. We're talking about medicinal mushrooms this morning. Which ones are good for you, and what there are different ones that are good for you and what they're for. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with this week's special. And welcome back. 19 minutes after 9 o'clock. We're talking about medicinal mushrooms this morning. And let's go ahead and look at what our special of the week is.
what else? Medicinal mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
We're actually going to, on any of the mushrooms that are just mushrooms,
Right.
we are actually doing 25% off. So and we have a lot of different mushrooms. Like I
Right.
said, we said before, we have the Mycoactive, we have the MRS mushroom, we have Shaga, we have turkey tail, we have the PSP, the PSK, we have AHCC, we have, you start now, I mean, we have most, you can't say all because there are so many of them out there, so
Well,
I
there's-
can't say that.
There's
Yeah.
like 270 that have actually been researched.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
But we have many of medicinal mushrooms, and so because different ones are good for different things, we decided to do the 25% off on any of the just mushrooms. Now, if a mushroom is in something, no, because there's so many things out there that might have one little ingredient that's a mushroom. But if it's just the mushrooms, yes, it's on sale this week, 25% off.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now, if you have to call because on our website, you can't just order it because some of the companies that we carry their mushroom combinations don't allow us to put it on sale online. But if you call the store, we can ship it to you, but you have to call us directly.
Right.
You can't just get online and order it.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
All
Just
right.
let you know.
21 minutes after 9 o'clock, and we're talking again about medicinal mushrooms and all that. And can you just go and buy fresh mushrooms somewhere? I mean,
Well, you can buy fresh mushrooms
no, I mean,
most any grocery store.
or if you wanted to. Well, yeah, you can go to your.
And remember,
big
they're
box store.
part of that agaricus family. I mean, you can go to any of the grocery stores around
Right,
here.
and you can get the portobello and the button mushrooms are very available.
Yeah.
Now in bigger cities, you can get the shiitake. You can
Yeah.
actually get some of the other mushrooms. I've never seen them around here at the grocery stores, but you really have to be at bigger cities.
I love
where-
cooking with mushrooms.
Yeah,
'cause
exactly.
I'll put them in spaghetti and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, you just like I said, you can cook. I mean, cook with them and eat them and all kind of stuff.
They're part of they're
on a
part of the
salad.
cultures where a lot of and especially in Asian countries and so on where they eat them all the time, and a lot of countries that have a big growth of these mushrooms, they use them all the time in their part of their food supply, which is probably another reason they live longer than we do because their food supply is so much better than ours to begin with, and then they're using things like these mushrooms as part of that food supply. It's just another feather in their cap, so to speak, as far as longevity.
Well, you see on TV or whatever, like the markets they have over there.
Right.
Or you can
yeah.
go walk down
Open
through
air
there, buy
market.
everything, open air markets. You can walk down through there and buy everything fresh.
Right.
And that's the way to go.
And around here,
Yeah.
I've never seen any of the other mushrooms be sold really that I've seen.
Not locally.
I
No,
could be
like I
wrong,
say,
but I haven't seen it locally.
some of
Now,
the bigger cities you can go in,
definitely can go to Whole Foods, and you can usually get some of
Mm-hmm.
the other mushrooms at Whole Foods that are fresh, where you can
Right.
cook with them. Because I've bought them before when I go over there.
Mm-hmm.
But you really eat the other ones though; those are still good.
Yeah, and you can even get those organically
can.
grown.
We buy the organic
Yeah.
ones; they always have
Uh-huh.
them organic. So I get the organic baby portobellos, the baby bellas, and then get the white button mushrooms.
and those
whichever.
big portobellos. Now those things are really.
Now, as much as you like to cook, what is a nice little recipe for one of the big portobello mushrooms?
Actually, doing it where you bake it stuffed with crab meat or shrimp, or those.
Got plenty of that down here.
Exactly.
and it is
So,
good,
to
I
me,
have to say.
Stuffed portobello is always good. Now, some people even grill it like a hamburger and use it instead of meat
Yeah.
for a vegetarian. I don't normally do that. I usually do it more like a stuffed portobello, where you can stuff it with ground meat. You can stuff it with ground chicken, ground turkey, and then put
Like I say,
or you can do seafood. I kind of like seafood.
The crab meat stuff is
Yeah.
kind of like
almost
yeah.
make a crab meat, just like if you're making crab cakes or something, and then you
Right.
stuff it in there and bake it. It's really good.
So just take your part. You don't have to dig it out or anything.
No, you want to take out some of the middle
You
stuff.
want to take it, well, you just want to make it real whole stuff. You know, just
right,
kind of take it
gotcha.
out just enough. It's got that stem thing. So you take that out.
that out.
I
And
know what I'll be
Yeah.
cooking this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Try some of that. I
They're
don't have a
good.
grill yet, but they're still working on my deck. But can definitely do it in the oven.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like I
They're
said,
very
so
good.
eat mushrooms, and you can take mushrooms, and they're really good to have on hand in case you're getting sick. I mean, when you start getting sick, it really helps with the immune system. They have a lot of antiviral properties.
Some of them even have, like shotguns don't have anti-inflammatory properties.
Yes, they do.
Which is kind of weird, but so to speak, I guess weird. Maybe that's not a good word for it, but it's kind of good that some do. Now, some don't, but some of them, like the shotguns, have some really good anti-inflammatory properties, and they've proven this in research to show that, hey, yeah, it really does reduce inflammation. And that's inflammation is a big part
Really,
of
the only group that shouldn't take supplemental mushrooms
Right.
is people that have had organ transplants, because it does boost the immune system.
Right.
And so that's the only group of people I would probably say stay away from. You can eat some of the button mushrooms. They're not quite as strong as when they have standardized extracts and they know high amounts of active ingredient. But you shouldn't take them. That's really the only group of people. Even, it's always been said if you have fungus, you shouldn't eat fungus, but some people now are saying that's not really true.
No.
It actually boosts the immune system, so you really need it to fight off the other funguses. So
Well, typically when you hear that, the fungus, they're talking about something like a candida or one of those
Right.
pathogenics, and they're not really the same thing as mushrooms. Okay, so now they may have some characteristics that are same, but they're not the same thing. Candida, I promise you, if you see candida here and you see a button mushroom, it ain't the same thing.
yeah.
I promise you, it's a totally different thing. And for that reason, we've used it, a lot of people over the years where they had, candida overgrowth. If you really want to stimulate their immune system, which is really kind of number one thing you have to do with them, because their immune system has been kind of shattered because of that candida, then some of these mushroom compounds can work wonders on them. It really can, because it boosts their immune response, because natural killer cells and some of those other things that are known to kill off some of the pathogens like the candidas and so on.
Well, I guess the best thing to do if you're not really sure which kind of mushroom to use for a particular situation is to go in and visit the doctors. I mean,
Right.
you don't need an appointment. There's no charge for a consultation. Go in and you might need to get some blood work, something like that, which we always recommend to find out, because there could be some underlying issues that you have that you don't even know about. Are canned mushrooms good to use?
I mean, if that's the only way you can get them, but they're better fresh. I always say anything is better fresh, but they're still going to have some good properties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just because they're canned doesn't mean that they deteriorate.
Right.
But yeah, you're always better probably with the fresh ones. But if that's the only thing you have is the canned ones, and a lot of people use those for cooking because
Right.
they're already
Yeah.
kind of sautéed or something. I guess maybe they're cooked a little bit.
I can honestly say I never use canned mushrooms.
No, that's true.
I haven't either. I usually get the fresh.
They're too easy to cut up. Just
Yeah.
So
fresh.
what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're going to be talking about supplements for blood sugar. So supplements to help with prediabetes, insulin resistance, and diabetes.
Yeah. But just supplements. Now, we
we're
talk
just
about diets and
we're
stuff.
talking about it all the time, but we don't get specific into the supplements. So we're going to be talking about supplements that are specifically for that.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Hope you learned something about mushrooms. You can also find out a lot of things on their Facebook page or their website at doctorsnutrition.com. We will be back again next Monday morning for another live edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. Hope you have yourself a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
For more information on highlighting your business and services on Healthy Living South Mississippi, contact Jim Tabor at 896-1313.